Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hugh Martyr. With me today is Chad Martyr. That interesting intro.
I inhaled the camera.
Good.
Don't worry.
With the fun. Tilt your nose up. And today, actually recently this week, I was talking about one of my favorite games of all time, which is Bioshock. And I went back to my old video on the matter and found it extremely lacking, actually. I found it didn't really capture quite what Bioshock is about. And I also didn't spoil the game, which is honestly half of the fun. So today, we'll be going through Bioshock with Chad. Chad, how much do you know about Bioshock?
I know a lot about Bioshock 2, which I watched.
Oh, Bioshock 2.
Yeah, I watched Bioshock 2 with RT Game.
No, that was 3.
Oh, Bioshock 3.
That's Bioshock Infinite.
Infinite, that's it.
Okay, so you don't know about Bioshock 1?
Nope.
Alright.
I do not know anything.
So, before the actual game starts, the story starts with a man named Andrew Ryan. He was actually born in Russia, and he had a name like Andrei Ryanovsky, and he changed that to Andrew Ryan to be more American or English.
Yeah.
And he was driven out by the cost of living and just Russia being a pretty awful place. And this is just after World War II. Russia was not doing well. America had just dropped the bomb, and a lot of people were really confused and happy because the war was over, but confused. And Andrew Ryan, who grew up and owned a great deal of stuff, he was essentially Jeff Bezos in the way that he controlled a lot of property. He had oil. He was a big monopoly man. He had oil, and he had train tracks, and he had construction companies, and he had a hand in the music industry. And he has these really zany friends sometimes. Well, you know how rich people have weird friends. That's just a thing. They surround themselves with strange. Anyway, not actually important. And he decides that everyone on Earth is in a pretty precarious position with how the nations are aligned right now.
I think I remember you telling me about this.
Cool.
I think I remember what the idea is.
It was the Cold War. They were going into the Cold War, and Andrew Ryan was convinced that one side would bomb the other and really ruin everything. Additionally, Andrew Ryan was pretty disillusioned about how the world liked to take your own accomplishments from you. And not and he wasn't oh, fate sucks, because he wasn't that feudal. That wasn't what he was about. Basically, around that time, and previously, the government liked to break up monopolies or large firms like him, and so he was paying a lot of taxes, because that's how being rich works. You pay a graduated income tax after the Tories. But anyway, people were taking away his hard-earned stuff. In Russia, people took away his father's hard-earned stuff, and they had to move. So he doesn't like that. He's like, hey, why can't people have what they made, what they got? They worked hard. Why can't they be the only one to benefit from that? So, between those two things, he was like, hey, I'll have some amazing inventors create a world for me underwater, because that way the nukes won't affect us and it's far away from everyone.
Doesn't nuclear stuff spread through water?
No, just the opposite. Water neutralizes
they actually
nuclear
put
power.
Nuclear stuff in the water.
Correct.
Sometimes they put it in pools.
And this is the bottom of the ocean, whale level, just real, the sea floor.
How does the pressure not kill them?
Well, they were geniuses working on alloyed glass and stuff like that. Real smart people. And he starts gathering other smart, zany people, and he actually gathers one Nazi, but on the grounds that there's the Nazi whose name is Bridget Tenenbaum. No, it wasn't Sukong. Hold on.
Bet you it's Sukong. Like, Bridget sounds like an American name.
Tenenbaum?
I don't know about
that. Sounds like a. Bridget is ambiguous, I suppose. No, it's Sukong. I remember because Sukong used to get subjects from the Nazis for his experiments. But Sukong is, in fact, a really smart genius, and Andrew Ryan is like, hey, if you don't do that anymore, I realize that people have taken a lot of stuff from you, and the only reason you didn't, like, invent, freaking...
Nuclear bombs?
Well, not nuclear bombs, because, Sukong is a biologist, so the only reason you didn't invent, like, a cure to cancer was that you worked with Nazis, and then
they had
the Americans...
to do that.
Well, he was working with Nazis, and then the war took away everything because he was on the wrong side. And, like, he wasn't trying for a cure to cancer, that's just an example, but he could have done great things, and that was taken away from him. And Andrew Ryan was like, oh, you got things taken away from you. Anyway, basically, that's the whole thing with who he invites down there. He invites the surgeon, who's all, like, doesn't really understand the concept of beauty anymore because it's also shallow and blah, blah, blah. And he invites this artist who... like this dancer who's old and is still really good, but nobody considers him as good because he's, like, too old. Something like that. I forget. But they don't accept him anymore, and it was just taken from him. And he accepts people like that, sort of like outcasts, you could say, and also very smart people. Is there something up with my voice that you can hear?
No.
Anyway. He invites a lot of those people. He also invites a small working class because to make a city work, you actually do need people to, like, pull the valves and stuff.
Yeah, like.
And he pays them personally. He creates the underwater city of Rapture, where there are no gods and no kings, only man. You don't have to give to anybody. You don't even have to pay Ryan. Well, you do have to pay Ryan because Ryan owns all the property. But after you pay Ryan, you're free as a bird.
So you have taxes, just like one.
No taxes.
Payment.
No taxes. One payment for the property, and you're good.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Technically, there's, like, some ambiguosity over, like, generators. You can make your own generator. You're allowed to do that and be cool with your own electricity. Like, it's a very self-sustaining nation. Yeah, well, it's more of a city, but it's technically a nation. It's a very small, compact nation.
Yeah, because they're all by themselves.
Right. So actually, for the first couple of, like, months, years, it's hard to tell the passage of time because the novel is pretty ambiguous. But, it goes pretty well. Sukong works with Dr. Bridget Tenenbaum, who's, like, all fegged in the head for some reason I don't remember, and they investigate this sea slug that has cool regenerative properties and, like, growing properties, and they create Adam. And Adam, you take these sea slugs that they found on the very bottom of the sea floor, and you juice them, and their juice has stem cells. Stem cells, that's real biology. Like, this isn't made up. Quite. They're cells that basically grow other cells in your body. So it's an injection of stem cells, and what these stem cells do is they create cells in your body that can achieve a certain purpose. Now, initially, it was for things like strength and speed. Like, you give yourself more adrenaline glands or more muscle thingies.
Muscle pieces.
Kinda, yeah. And then, like, they were like, hey, what if we made people's hands naturally sticky? Which is honestly kind of, like, plausible, because imagine if you grew little, like, the glands that spiders use to climb walls. Technically, theoretically, you could grow those on your hands. Theoretically. Using stem cells.
Yeah.
And there's also Eve, Adam and Eve, they're
Yeah,
very
makes
funny.
sense.
Eve is used to fuel Adam. You put Adam in there, and then Eve gives you the nutrients you need to operate the stem cells. Because these aren't natural stem cells, you can't get them from natural food. You need an injection of Eve. Makes sense. Eventually,
Are Adam and Eve like potions?
no, they're both injections.
Okay, injections.
Right.
I remember seeing those in Bioshock Infinite.
No, well, those
There
were
was kind of infections. I really did
those
not
were different.
like.
Those were tonics.
I really did not like the Raven one.
But it's about the same, like, outcome. Eventually, they move on to bioelectricity. Meanwhile, like, the
Bioshock.
artist, that's different, but yes. The artist dude is, like, gallivanting around and, like, being gay and reinventing social norms. And then it starts getting pretty dog-eat-dog-y. Because, with nobody to curb monopolies, people start being a lot meaner to each other and being like, I bought some trash men and told them to dispense of the trash near your store. I'm sorry. It's just really convenient for me. Oopsie poopsie. Afford somebody to move the trash away from your store if you're so poor, if you're so bad off about it. And the other store can't because they don't have enough money because there's always trash near their store. So they go out of business. So
That sucks.
people start playing dirty. Andrew Ryan does not care because he's like, hey, better this than it being robbed from you unfairly. This is where Andrew Ryan starts being wrong.
Yeah, because it's still being wrong. It's still being taken from you.
Right. And then people start coming down with funky ideas. A therapist type person comes down called Lamb.
Wait,
who,
how do they come down?
They're invited down in submersibles. Andrew Ryan keeps on bringing new people in if he hears about them on land and feels like it would be a shame if they got nuked, aka if they got like their stuff taken away from them. He just calls them in, and he's like, "Hey, here's an invitation," and so they come. Lamb, the therapist, comes in and talks to the working class and figures out they're all like really sad and depressed because they get very little attention and they live a pretty bad life. And so she starts like unionizing them, which is very bad in Andrew Ryan's eyes because unions mean you support each other and you have to pay your fellow man.
Yeah,
and that's good, but it's not bad. It's not Andrew Ryan's. Well, it isn't what Andrew Ryan wants. It isn't Rapture. And now Andrew Ryan has a quandary because, I mean, it's pretty unfair of him to, like, get his own police and to enforce this, so he starts trying to debate Lamb at first and be like, this is a terrible idea. Please, don't do this. Here, look at some moral reasoning. And Lamb, to her credit, like, reasons back. She doesn't just attack. She reasons back. Rhymes. And so Andrew Ryan gets annoyed. Frank Fontaine
I've heard of him.
starts rearing his ugly head.
Big
Frank Fontaine is a con man, has been since life, wasn't actually invited in, instead stole somebody else's identity. Actually, we don't know Frank Fontaine's real name.
Ooh.
That's not his real name. He actually kills a fishing captain who was working for Rapture named Frank Fontaine
Interesting.
and stole his identity and started up Fontaine's Fisheries. And he also starts unionizing, but he does it a little differently. And he dips his toe into the plasmid thing, and he's not that as bad in Andrew Ryan's eyes, but he's still pretty bad. Because, dude, you're unionizing. So then, Andrew Ryan's like, things, and, Sukong, well, specifically Tenenbaum, Sukong, it turns out, is not the best of moral boys. They find out that currently there's like an addictive property to the Adam and Eve combo. And they're like, we should probably fix that. And then Fontaine arrives and he's like, hey, only kind of fix it. I want you to make me unaddictive plasmids. I'll pay you a great deal. I have a lot of money. And keep selling addictive plasmids. And the working class starts getting addicted because they're normal people living boring lives. So why why don't you want to, like,
Have
inject the thing?
superpowers.
Right. That brings some spark to their lives, except they start getting addicted, and they start, like, ODing, and that goes downhill. Also, you remember those sea slugs they used to create Adam? Do you?
Yeah.
Great.
I thought you were asking the audience.
No. Well, they're parasites, literally.
Oh, joy.
They need to latch onto a host to keep pumping out juice. Guess who the perfect host is?
Frank Fontaine?
No. Small children, specifically girls.
Of
Why?
course.
They don't know, but Sukong certainly found it out. Why was he running around slapping slugs on small children? We don't know, but he sure figured it out. And since there are now a lot of orphans because of the ODing problem, he's like, hey, the problem is solved. Hey, small children, you are now hosts, vessels, little sisters. And so,
Does it hurt?
orphan children, no.
Okay, good.
They're turned into little sisters. They now, like, their blood is now Adam. A small amount is, like, drained from them every day. And because of, like, the chemical imbalance in their systems caused by the slugs, they're really wonked out and they have weird eyes and stuff. And they look spooky. Problem.
I think I know what you're talking about. I know what it eventually turns into.
Problem.
Girls.
All of the splicers want that Adam because, hey, addiction. So they're literally willing to attack small children to get it. And Bridget and Tenenbaum.
Wait, what are the splicers?
Splicers are people addicted to plasmids.
Okay.
Plasmids are Adam and Eve. Excuse me.
So then they were so addicted that they'll attack the children for the slugs?
Right.
On the children?
The slugs, the blood, etc.
Joy.
Right. So, they create Big Daddies. Who are Big Daddies?
I remember the Big Daddies too. They're big splicers.
They're big old boys in diving suits with drills and /or rail guns. They do not use plasmids, usually.
Sync, please say a command.
No.
Oh.
Anyway.
Alrighty then.
Right. So they create Big Daddies who run around doing that, and Frank Fontaine and Andrew Ryan is like, hey, wait a minute. This stuff could not be addictive. Hey, hold on a second. And he's like, Frank, freaking, what the heck, man? That's it. Police force, now. And he creates a police force. And he says, okay, we're gonna go knock on Frank Fontaine's door, and, it's a battle now. And they fight, and Frank Fontaine fakes his own death. Hooray! And everybody thinks he's dead. And legally, he's dead. And then Atlas shows up. How convenient. Atlas is this Irish dude who's like, hey, let's unionize. Fully. Completely. Let's basically overthrow Andrew Ryan and make sure we're all safe and sound and cool and nice.
I'm guessing Atlas is like a very strong big guy.
Yes. He is also Frank Fontaine.
Oh.
Frank Fontaine, by the way, is canonically an excellent actor. Like a god-level actor. Like he learned English from the theater. But insignificant. He messes with Andrew Ryan. A lot messes with Andrew Ryan. They start attacking and having a war inside the city. And
Civil War.
a lot of people start dying. And Andrew Ryan really, like, buckles in and prepares to fight for a city.
Oh.
And that's where the game starts.
And that's where we're going to end the video, because now we're here.
That's correct. Bye-bye.
Yeah!
And we're back. All right. That was the green light, actually. So that's where the game begins. You are Jack something or other. I forget, really. You are on an airplane. You're smoking on an airplane, which is, I find funny. You're looking at a picture of your mom and dad, which is all blurry because of the smoke. And then you crash into the ocean for an unknown reason. You see a lighthouse nearby. You decide to swim to it because otherwise you will drown. Here's where I start spoiling things because I want to.
Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen any of this, go back and watch the video. Watch a video of it play through, because you don't want to know this stuff unless...
Or if you're truly interested in playing the game,
yeah,
don't listen to this.
that too.
Anyway, you go into the lighthouse and find on the way down this bathysphere,
I remember hearing about the lighthouse. There was a big part in Bioshock Infinite. Or not
that's
a
a
big,
different lighthouse. But
Oh
it's
my
funny.
gosh.
Uh,
Oh my god.
so bathysphere is like a tiny little submarine, and there's a statue of Andrew Ryan and a banner that says "No gods or kings, only man," which is pretty ominous for just strolling in. So you hop in the bathysphere, and this recording plays of Andrew Ryan welcoming you to Rapture. Then you round the corner around this like mountainous bit underwater, and you see this huge city with like fish swimming around it and through it, and it's super neat. It's just amazing.
Is it like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild kind of thing where it like pauses the screen and it looks around?
Kind of, except this is more technologically based, so it looks different. It's a city.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's a city under the sea.
I'd really like to see what Legend of Zelda land looked like before I was taken by Ganon.
And then you land in this place, and a splicer tries to break into your thing, and it's stopped by a Big Daddy, and you pass out. And then you wake up, and you find a gun and a radio. Using the radio, you manage to reach contact with a very special chum. His name is Atlas. You do not know anything about Atlas at this moment. You do not get the prologue that I just gave you. You don't get that. So you hear Atlas, and he basically runs down the tiniest information for you. Like, hey, city under the sea, Andrew Ryan's mad at me, I'm mad at Andrew Ryan, help me out. Also, my wife and children, I need to get with them so we can escape this place, because it's awful. And
So in other words, he lies to you.
well, we'll get to that. And he's like, hey, up this way, you see that syringe? Poke it in yourself. And you poke it in yourself. And you gain the electroplasmid after this trippy moment where you like almost die, kind of. Well, it's really weird for you because you've never had a plasmid before. And he teaches you about the 1-2 punch, which is where you swing a wrench. I'm sorry, you found a wrench. You didn't find a gun yet. You find a gun later on the corpse of a splicer who you kill by shocking him and then smacking him with the wrench.
Let's go.
He calls it the 1-2 punch.
Because you shock them and then they're like, bzzz, and you're like, whoosh,
Right.
wrench!
Right, and that usually kills him. And right now you're only fighting like brute splicers and fast splicers. When the gun comes out, you start fighting spider splicers. You move on to like fire splicers, lots of splicers, obviously, who can't use their powers very effectively, but still use them.
In the game, if you're technically addicted to those electroplasmids, you're not addicted.
No, you have. Atlas tells you where to find Fontaine's special unaddictive stock.
Okay, that's good. No
That's
wonder.
the idea.
I was gonna say, like, couldn't you, even if you were addicted, could you not choose to do it, or would you become a CPU for a second and have to get a syringe?
Well, I mean, you can't actually progress the game because he won't lead you forward unless you take that. So you don't really have a choice, but technically you have a choice.
I mean, yeah, you can just walk around the entire game, not doing anything.
That's how it is. So on the way there, you see another splicer trying to attack a little sister, and then the Big Daddy lands and absolutely trucks him, and you get to watch this behind closed glass to understand how dangerous Big Daddies are.
And how dangerous splicers are.
No, like, they just got trucked.
That's true.
The thing about that is, Atlas says, if you can get your hands on a little sister, that is free Adam, and that's good, you know. That's a fact. And you know that is a fact, to be completely honest. So through the game, you'll have the opportunity to kill Big Daddies and then suck the Atom out of the little sisters for like extra ammunition.
So they're kind of like ammo givers.
Yeah, kind of. Except very optional and kind of hard to get. Not extremely optional. They can help a lot. But anyway, you go and meet that surgeon guy I kind of mentioned for a second, who didn't really understand beauty and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he's like gone insane and like really chopped up people and gone very Frankenstein.
I was gonna say, doesn't that guy? Don't those 3 guys that you mentioned become
evil? Yes.
Yeah, bosses.
Zombie boys. And he's not much of a boss, but he does have electroshock, which makes him dangerous, and he does have like he's the first stage bad guy. Like he screams at you on the radio about how you're evil and you're not beautiful enough and stuff like that.
Wait, doesn't he say like beauty is petty though?
Well, he says that beauty is hard to define. He has delusions that a prophetite visits him and tells him what's beautiful and what's not. And what's beautiful happens to be your frontal lobe removed from your body.
Oh.
Or stuff like that. He's also a big fan of symmetry, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, right. I kind of like symmetry.
Yeah, symmetry is nice.
But then if you get slashed on one side of the face, he'll be like, now!
Right.
Yeah.
Essentially. But that doesn't matter. You dispatch of him easily enough. He isn't very hard. He's just, oh, look, they can use plasmids too. He's kind of that guy. You move on. You meet this old dude who used to work with Frank Fontaine, who wants you to prove that some of his enemies are dead before he'll let you go through. So you get this camera and do some camera missions where you take pictures of their dead bodies. And then later he attacks you with a combination of frost and fire, which is an interesting combo to be certain. And he's pretty good as a boss. Then you move from thus. Oh, I forgot. After every boss, Andrew Ryan appears on a screen. All the cameras like focus on you, and Andrew Ryan talks to you. And he's like, another land parasite here to take what's mine. And you know, granted what he's been through, that's a little bit fair.
Yeah. Because he has had stuff taken from him.
Yes, he's had quite a lot, in fact. Okay, so, you go to the bathysphere. Then, Andrew Ryan is like, where Atlas says his family and kids are. And Andrew Ryan basically, like, sends it away, like, self-destructs it. And Atlas is like, no! Well, more emotionally, you know, but he's all roughed up about that. And then the radio
Was his actual wife and children there?
No.
Okay.
He has no wife or children.
He was just acting.
Yes.
So that you could get revenge on.
Right. And he's like, it's Andrew Ryan's fault. Because, you know, it is. And, then it's Fort Frolic time with our favorite guy, Sanders Cohen. The actor who is no longer liked by anybody, so he went a bit cuckoo. He says, theater and things. He dances around. He plays classical music while you fight bad guys, which is like, I forget exactly what piece it is, but it's like a real piece and it's very funny. He blows up a guy for not learning the piano correctly. He's an interesting fellow. You never actually fight him, he just sends you on little missions. Like Alice Angel and Bendy and the Ink Machine, kind of. And you see him once.
But you fight Alice Angel, kind of. No, you fight Boris.
Right, and then Alice Angel gets stabbed. And frickin' Cohen just gets left alive. Shoot, did I skip Tenenbaum? This may be out of order, to be completely fair.
There is a lot, though.
Right. Moving on to Tenenbaum. She's in this, like, really foresty part of Rapture, because that's where they made all their oxygen. By having trees.
Well, because trees.
Right. And she also feels really protective towards the little sisters, because she basically made them. And so she's like, hey, you can save them. And that would be nice of you. And you're like, cool?
I'd definitely do that.
And
That'd be part of mine.
it gets you no benefits, but it's nice. And it leads to a secret ending. Anyway, you do that. Atlas is like, alright, go get him. Smack him on the head. Your radio cuts off again, and you head into this room, this set of rooms, where you get closer and closer to Andrew Ryan. And Andrew Ryan isn't talking to you anymore. He does kill Tenenbaum for betraying him, quote unquote. Well, she did work with Frank Fontaine, but he like chokes her out with neurotoxin, then kills her. So Andrew Ryan isn't on the good team here. To be completely and totally solid with you. But now, as you approach him...
Wait a second, so this is kind of like Kite Man. Kind of working for both sides.
I guess?
No, I mean, like, one side's kind of good.
Yes.
But they're both working for each other. He's kind of... I mean, I don't know about working for both, but he's working for the wrong side unwillingly. You are unwittingly.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Kind of like Kite Man.
So, you come to this big old presentation that has "Would you kindly" in big red letters and a lot of like stuff. And what this basically tells you is that, hey, guess what? You're Andrew Ryan's son. Atlas kidnapped Andrew Ryan's wife, which is also why Andrew Ryan is a bit mad. Well, he sort of coerced Andrew Ryan's wife into having an abortion. Instead, he removed it. He asked Sukong to hypnotically implant a backstory into his head of living in the outside world and just being a normal guy, and to always obey and respond to the phrase, "Would you kindly?" And then you have this flashback of all the times old Atlas has said, "Would you kindly?" and then asked you to do something.
Oh, that sucks.
Yes, it's a big moment. And
So he's been controlling him.
right. And you stroll into Andrew Ryan's place, and he is playing golf. And he talks to you a lot about free will and choice, and he calls you a slave, which is pretty fair, you know?
Yeah, but you were still being an unwitting slave.
Yeah, you sure were. And there's a lot of thing about, technically he's talking to you, because you're forcing Jack to do things. But that's just a theory. No, it's a thing. He's being like, oh, you have control too. Well, he doesn't see that. He's just talking about it as an extension. And then he hands you his golf club. And he says, "A man chooses, a slave obeys. What will you do?" And then he kneels in front of you. And at that point, the only thing to do, literally, is kill him.
Oh, you cannot do
You
anything
cannot spare him.
Well, that sucks. I wanted to spare
The game does not give you that option.
I'd like to spare him. Get him
So
back.
you force Jack to kill him. Or Fontaine forced Jack to kill him by saying, "Go kill Andrew Ryan. Would you kindly?"
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. So that's a big moment. You just killed your dad. And
He was like actually Andrew Ryan's son?
yes,
I actually.
completely.
Huh.
And I'm not sure Andrew Ryan knew that, but yeah. And then Atlas laughs a lot, and he's like, "Surprise! I'm Fontaine!"
You
And
just
then
did all my dirty work.
you stroll in to this big arena type thing where he's hooked up to like a cross that's pumping every plasmid possible into him.
Ew.
And he's just turning into a like blue and red superhuman. His body and like veins look a lot like Captain Marvel's energy in Captain Marvel.
Oh, so like kind of. I'd say plasma colored, but that would
Yeah,
be too,
kinda,
That
I
would
guess.
be too ironic in a way.
And he's just super strong. And then you have a really big boss fight where you just blast him over and over and wait
gotta
until
dodge.
and dodge a lot and wait until he needs to go refill his plasmids. And,
So he wears out his plasmids, and then
Right.
when he goes to get him, you can just go.
He needs to get more Eve, and then you.
And at this point, you have a gun.
Yeah,
right?
you have miniguns by this point.
And also
I'm
mini
not talking about the
plasmids.
gameplay so much as I am talking about the story.
Mm.
So you, and at one threshold of health, when he's about to die, he like knocks you onto the floor, and he says a bunch of stuff about power and how he won and stuff. And then a little sister like lands on his neck and attacks him with a syringe, and then a bunch of them like swarm him and start syringing him. And this happens whether or not you save them. They just run up and syringe him.
Interesting.
And then the game ends. And if you saved all the little sisters, it gives you an ending where you're leading them away on the beach, and then they're surrounding you on your deathbed.
Ooh.
Real sad because
Oh.
you died of natural causes on the surface.
Alright.
And if you didn't, then you see a thing of a U.S. submarine discovering a bathysphere and then splicers covering the ship. And yeah. So either Jack becomes the next ruler of Rapture, or Jack leads all the little sisters away. That's Bioshock Rapture.